I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting for September 27th, 2017. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Tonight's a special night for an ordinance that I anticipate is going to be passed tonight. And in advance of that, I'd like to ask the volunteer firemen from Hatfield Fire Company and Calmer Fire Company to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Okay, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers,
Second.
second by Vice President Hughes. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move forward with the agenda that is in front of you and on the board. Consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items that are listed in the agenda? Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Vice President Hughes. Those consent items for the record are the Board of Commissioners regular meeting minutes of August 23, Board of Commissioners workshop meeting minutes of September 13, the Treasurer's report for the month of September, and bills payable, paid bills in the amount of $1,166,546.85, and unpaid bills for the month of September, $311,358.98. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving those items into the record, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, those are moved into the record. All right, citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments on agenda items? Now, we have a number of action items tonight, so if you would like to wait until those action items are called, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, if you would prefer, and it's an agenda item that you'd like to discuss, feel free to come up to the podium. All right, no one's coming up, so we're going to move on to our public hearing. We have a public hearing tonight with regard to Ordinance 671. We need to open the public hearing, have a hearing, close the hearing, and then present the ordinance if there's a motion and a second. So that's just a little bit of the logistics that we're going to go through. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask for a motion to open the public hearing with regard to the Hatfield Township tax relief for volunteer firefighters, Ordinance number 671.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. Aaron, if you'd take us from here.
Mr. President, let me just explain what we're doing here, and then if anybody has any comments, obviously you're welcome to come to the microphone. So just big picture overview, sort of what got us here today. First of all, so 96% of fire companies in Pennsylvania are volunteer. In 1976, I think the Steelers won the Super Bowl that year, just as a side note. There were roughly 300,000 volunteer firefighters in Pennsylvania. 2012, only 50,000. So obviously, if that trend continues, we're not going to have any volunteer firefighters in a few years, which we know is not the case in Hatfield because of the audience that we have here, but throughout Pennsylvania. So currently, those volunteers provide a $6 billion savings to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania. So that's important point out. Roughly a year ago, the Hatfield Commissioners, led by Commissioner Bob Rogers, encouraged the commissioners to pass a resolution to encourage the legislature in Pennsylvania to adopt legislation that would permit local governments to provide tax relief to volunteer firefighters. The legislature did that in January of 17 this year, and the township has been working since to come up with an ordinance to put that into action. So what the hearing is for tonight is the ordinance that the board will consider here in a few minutes. It does two things. One, it reduces the property tax for all volunteer firefighters that live in Hatfield Township and own property. It reduces your tax bill by 20%. That was the most permitted by the legislation. Secondly, and more importantly, it provides up to $500 worth of relief from the township earned income tax. So for an example, if any volunteer firefighter from Calmer or Hatfield that lives in Hatfield Township that makes less than $100,000 a year will not owe the township anything for earned income tax. You'll still pay your portion to the school district, but for Hatfield Township, you will pay zero. So in total, if hypothetically a volunteer firefighter makes $100,000, owns a house in Hatfield Township, at the average assessed value, which is about $150,000, that volunteer firefighter next year will pay roughly $570 less next year than that person did this year. So obviously the commissioners have shown commitment to the volunteer firefighters, appreciate and respect everything they do for the township, and hopefully this will be a tool to use to recruit, to retain, and to grow our volunteer base here in Hatfield Township.
All right. Any questions from the audience at all? I have a couple of comments. This is a small token of our appreciation. Many of you have heard us say thank you publicly before, and sometimes saying that is important, but sometimes that's not enough. And when Commissioner Rogers heard of this, he brought it to us, and we're all very happy to be a part of it, undoubtedly. Each of you answers the call every single day, whether there's a fire or not. You train, it's on your mind. It is something that you build your families around, and that is more than just admirable. That is one of the best ways of serving your community that we can think of. Public safety in today's world is sometimes disregarded and maybe not recognized as they should be. Hopefully this is our way of saying, thank you for everything that you're doing. Questions, comments? All right, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Vice President Hughes. Second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, all in favor, I should say, right? Did I say that correctly? Okay, good. Whew. All opposed to closing the hearing, say nay. We are closed the public hearing. Now we're going to move on to the action items, the first of which is actually voting on ordinance number 671. Is there a motion for approval of that ordinance?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers.
Second.
Second by Vice President Hughes. Any other questions or comments from the audience or from commissioners? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of ordinance 671, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that ordinance is approved. Congratulations. Congratulations and thank you to each and every one of you. We really mean that. All right, we're going to move forward with our other action items. Next is a motion for approval with regard to an agreement of sale for a parcel 1285 on Moyer Road. Is there a motion for approval of that agreement of sale?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Vice President Hughes. Aaron, if you'd like to walk us through this, although I know we've discussed it at the last couple of meetings.
Yeah, just quickly. So we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Everyone in the area that lives around Schweiker Park knows that there's a problem with the lack of parking, especially on weekends when there's tournaments being played. I was hoping one of the volunteer firefighters was going to be here tonight who lives in that vicinity. He is not, but he will appreciate this, I do believe. So the current parking setup for Schweiker is as follows. They're as identified. And with my nice goalposts that we drew last year, these were the problem areas. We have been in discussions with the property owner of the parcel identified with the red dot there, and we are tonight approving agreement of sale for what will be the subdivided parcel, which will provide an additional 32 parking spaces for Schweiker Park and all the activities that go on there. We have a signed sales agreement from the property owner who I met with today that once the board approves, President Zipfo will sign this evening. And then we will go along through the subdivision process over the next few months and settle on the property before the end of this calendar year, and hopefully then begin the project late winter, early spring, and the parking lot should be ready to go for the baseball season, softball season. Lansdale Borough approved at its meeting last week to move forward with the intergovernmental agreement, which we'll discuss in a few seconds. So all costs associated with the acquisition and construction will be divided by 2. So total liability, the Hatfield taxpayers, roughly $107,000 for both the acquisition and the installation of this parking lot. And again, we've said many times the last few weeks, not a perfect solution. So you'll see an agenda item coming up is the right of first refusal, which in a few years, when that property owner is comfortable with selling the remaining portion, Township will be in a position to acquire that as well, which should provide then the total solution we're looking for in that area. So this is the agreement of sale, $104,500, again, divided by 2 since it's an intermunicipal project. So if the board could approve that, and then we'll just go through the other items associated with this acquisition.
All right, any questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of motion, of the motion to approve the agreement of sale, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next is Resolution 17-14 with regard to the same item. It's a motion for approval of a friendly condemnation for parcel 1285 on Moyer Road. Is there a motion made by Commissioner Andrus for Resolution 17-14? Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Rogers. Aaron, if you'd walk us through the next step.
Sure, so this just will be attached to the sales agreement. This allows the property owner and the seller to avoid certain taxes associated with the transfer of property. So it's an advantage to the seller, and obviously it's been a cooperative situation from the beginning. I know condemnation has somewhat of a harsh tone to it, but like President Zipfel said, in this case, it's a very friendly condemnation that will absolutely benefit the seller in this case.
All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving Resolution 17-14, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next is the third of 4 parts of this, a motion for approval with regard to the right of first refusal agreement for the parcel 1285 Moyer Road. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Vice President Hughes. Aaron, step number 3, if you would.
Right, so this puts the township in a position for when the property owner is ready to sell the remaining portion of this parcel. Township will have the first say, and we'll go through the same process as we did this time with an appraisal. So hopefully we'll see in the next few years when the property owner is comfortable. The property owner cannot sell to anyone else but the township unless the township should decide not to buy it at the time.
All right, questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion for the right of first refusal agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Last step in this process is a motion to advertise the ordinance for the intergovernmental agreement between Lansdale Borough and Hatfield Township, the acquisition and parking improvements. Is there a motion? So moved. Motion by Commissioner Andrus. Second by Vice President Hughes. Aaron, last and final step.
Sure, so this agreement, the motion is to advertise the ordinance. An ordinance is required anytime 2 municipalities enter into an agreement. The agreement simply states the total scope of the project, the acquisition, and that all costs and work associated with this will be evenly divided between the 2 municipalities. So tonight will be advertised at the October workshop or regular, doesn't necessarily matter. We will then adopt the ordinance and also approve the agreement between and Lansdale is on track to do it in the same time frame as well.
Great. Any questions or comments?
Does that agreement only apply to this acquisition?
Yes, this project.
You have to renew it every time you have a joint?
There's a separate project, you would have to do a separate agreement and a separate ordinance.
Or that other piece of property, we'd have to go through this entire thing.
Pretty much have to do every step again. Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to advertise the ordinance with regard to the intergovernmental agreement with Lansdale Borough, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Action item number 6, ordinance number 672 with regard to tree clearance, sidewalks, and roads. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
By Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Andrus. Aaron, I think you're up to
Sure.
bat a lot tonight.
Yeah, sure. This was something recommended by Chief of Police, and the Code Department certainly found value in it as well. And this is simply adding to our ordinance the idea of making sure sidewalks and roads are clear, specifically 8 foot high from a sidewalk and 14 from a road. There's been some areas in Hatfield where people walking their dog would have to go out into the street, and obviously that's a safety concern. And it was brought to our attention, and just updating ordinance to make sure these things are included to make Hatfield a little safer.
All right, questions or comments from the audience or commissioners?
So enforcement will be notification to the homeowner, they have to make some corrective action?
Right, so they'll be given a period of time to correct before a citation. We only issue a citation if the notices go ignored for quite some time.
All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving ordinance 672, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Action item number 7, Resolution 17-15. Is there a motion for approval of the 2018 minimum municipal obligations pension plans?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus, second by Vice President Hughes. Aaron.
Thanks, Mr. President. As Commissioner Andrus talked about 2 weeks ago, we went over our liabilities for 2018. Fortunately, the township's in a good position as far as pension increases. Small 1% increase for 2018, which is great news for the taxpayers in Hatfield. This is simply a resolution just stating the liabilities for 18, which is a requirement. And the slide outlines just some of the history that Commissioner Andrus went over 2 weeks ago.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of Resolution 17-15, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Action item number 8, motion for approval of the amendment to a settlement agreement. The chair will make this motion. This is with regard to an improvement on a property right down the block, as a matter of fact.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Andrus. Aaron, if you want to walk us through this one.
Yeah, so sure. A local business in Hatfield had a prior agreement, settlement agreement from the zoning hearing board going back several years ago. That business owner asked if they could modify some of the signage on its location, which will be considered and approved by the board here with this motion. And the agreement itself just outlines what some of those modifications to the current signage would be.
Residents around the area were consulted, and there's no objection that we know of, and we reviewed the process or the improvement itself, and it seems very reasonable, especially given the prior settlement agreement. So unless there's any other questions or comments, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion to amend the settlement agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Last, Resolution 17-16. Is there a motion for approval of the Civil Service Rules and Regulations corporal requirements?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Vice President Hughes. Aaron, I think it's your last time up to bat tonight.
PowerPoint that he was going to give about this. Sure, I'd be happy to summarize.
I should have turned to Chief.
You mean
Got a
refer to
half-
slide 6, Chief?
It's a half an hour speech,
Put it
I
in
think he
first.
said.
I'd be happy to summarize, Mr. President. This is simply an amendment to our current civil service rules and regulations. Currently, the rules and regs state that in order to apply to be a corporal in our police department, you would need 3 years of Hatfield Township police experience. Given the makeup of our department, Chief Tierney wants to create a good level of competition among the officers, so he would like to see in civil service recommended the commissioners consider amending that to simply state that the officer would need 3 years of police experience, not necessarily in Hatfield. We've had several recent hirings of officers that have significant police experience, just not in Hatfield. So over the next few years, there's going to be a lot of positions and advancement opportunities for the officers due to retirements. So Chief is thinking ahead and would like to put us in a position where we can have a good, healthy competition for some of these leadership positions in the police department.
Thank you for forecasting for us and seeing that
Including
down the
Chief.
road. Including. All right, any questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 17-16, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is also approved. Okay, citizens' comments.
Dean Menninger, President of Hatfield Fire Company. On behalf of the fire company, we appreciate the ordinance you just passed the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, we appreciate it.
You.
Thank you for everything that all of you do. Any other citizens' comments? Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I was asked to announce that on October 12th, that's Thursday, October 12th, the Hatfield High School Day, it's a reunion, right?
Anyone who attended Hatfield High School.
Anyone
I do
who
believe.
attended Hatfield High School. Is that right, Ray? All of the members may be in the room. So this is more of a reminder than an announcement, really. Hatfield High School Day at the firehouse on October 12th, and it says here, the note says from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, that's a...
Open house?
You've got a full day ahead of you.
Long day.
That it's an open house.
That pickle court there?
Hey, they will.
All right. Unless there's anything else for the good of the order, I will entertain a motion. Oh, before I do that, I have to announce we are going into executive session to discuss personnel. Sorry about that, Mr. Solicitor, I almost forgot.
I got you.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there such a motion?
I move.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Andrus. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks, and congratulations and thank you to all the fire companies.
Thank you.